NightVision on the new Rennies radio network. Following clues left by our ancestors and travelling to the stars. Decoding mysteries and discoveries. Exploring secret meanings and hidden wisdom. Uncovering secret knowledge. So let's get into NightVision with your host, Renee Barnett.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of NightVision right here on the new Rennies radio network and YouTube. So glad that you could join us today. As you can see, I'll leave it to you whether or not I'm just having a bad hair day or whether I'm touting my new Tour de France cap, which I think we can probably agree that both of those things can be true at the same time. But I was really excited to be able to be here to witness the Tour de France coming through our tiny little village here in Cuisa. And I'd like to just show you a little bit of what the feeling was in the community that day last Tuesday. And of course, the riders are still carrying on. I think, if I'm not mistaken, their ride today is 179 kilometers, and that's a long, long way. Fortunately, it's not quite as hot today as it has been and as it was on last Tuesday when the tour came through Cuisa. So, Jay, could you roll that video, please? Thank you, Jay. I tell you, I'm not super big on sports of any kind, really, but just to be here for that, it was much more exciting than I anticipated, and I really felt a part of the community, and I felt very French that day. So it was a lot of fun, and I think you could see there that they came through in two sort of tranches. The first one being a little bit shorter than the second one. I don't know how many exactly riders there are, and I know there's been a few crashes and things, but I don't think there's been any major failures or anything to report. But anyway, we'll look to see who ends up winning the Tour de France. Without any further delay, I'd like to introduce, first of all, our history director, James Martin. Hi, James.
Hi, Renee, and it's good to be back. I do have to say, I think the people who were driving the cars were cheating. Yeah.
I think that was a little bit easier. There were so many of those vehicles with bicycles on the top. I guess they were spares, that they carry along because there's probably lots of flat tires and all kinds of mechanical situations that may come up. So they're right there at the ready with replacement bicycles. But anyhow, I had a front row seat. I was able to book a table at La Ravito restaurant with our wonderful friend Charlotte. And I was able just to sit right there and see everything go by. It was funny though, because they kept coming by with these sort of floats and funny looking vehicles and things with people throwing out souvenirs. And I got hit in the head 4 times.
That was nothing to do with souvenirs, Renee. It's
I didn't see anybody else get hit. Fortunately, most of them were soft, like caps and and little bags of candy and things like that. But I did get hit by a couple of little hard objects that kind of conked me in the head a couple times. But I didn't take it personally. But anyhow, we shouldn't waste any more time on my silly story because we have a really special guest today. And he is a wonderful artist. And I think we have some of his work to show you here. And a shaman and a healer and a guide to sacred sites and sacred lands, including the area right around here. But that's not the only place, because I know he has trips in the United States and in other countries, Spain. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Luiz Pontual Marx. Hi, Luiz.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you both again. Yeah.
Thank you so
much. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Oh, thank you for agreeing to it. I really appreciate it. I know we just recently had an art expo here at La Confluence with some of your work, which we still have. If anyone's really interested in making an appointment to come by when we're not just open, just send us an email and I will make an appointment for you to come by and have a look at his beautiful work. Thank you, James. The new Rennies at gmail.com is where to go. Also, if you have a suggestion for us for a guest or a topic, I'm tempted to maybe once a month have a show called Stump the Historian and have people just throw out the wildest historical subject they can think of and see if James doesn't know about it. I would bet that he does. So,
without doing the usual, if you're listening to this, however you're listening on, whether you're on Spotify or YouTube, please share and like and do all of that stuff. I can honestly say, if you ask me any question about sports or sporting history, not a clue.
Okay, we'll stay away from sports. I wouldn't know anything. I wouldn't know whether you were right or wrong anyway, so that might be a good one. You could just say anything, and I wouldn't argue about it. Of course, we might get lots of comments in the comment section that weren't too favorable. But interestingly, we had been talking, James and I, about Luiz and his work. And I know that James has some questions for Luiz. But before that, I'd like to, exercise my bully pulpit here and first ask you, Luiz, I know that you are devoted to Mary Magdalene, and of course, her presence is very prominent in this area. A lot of people come here seeking the history and the mystery of Mary Magdalene in this area. But I'm wondering, how did you first sort of become interested in the figure of Mary Magdalene, and so much so that your work, a lot of it does revolve around her?
Well, it was a kind of an unexpected meeting, I think so. I was working in Brazil. I've been for more than 40 years working with native communities in the forest, in revitalized projects, cultural projects, with art workshops, and I didn't have any intention to come to Europe. I was very okay in Amazonia. I love that area. And I had a meeting there on a workshop I was giving on a tribe that shocked me. I didn't understand at all what was going on, because in reality I was at that time very much into shamanism and the ethnic culture I was working with, not at all with Catholicism or Christianity. But I have a meeting with an indigenous girl that her looking at me, her eyes touched me deep inside. Something was going on there that I couldn't understand. I just knew that that girl, she was a indigenous leader, young, 25 years old, 3 kids, and uh, what I was feeling couldn't be something like a love affair because she couldn't do, uh, she couldn't get involved with me anyway due to the customs. She couldn't get involved with the white guy. I knew that, especially being a leader in there. But I had a deep love feeling on her eyes that I couldn't understand. A year passed, then I came back to the tribe, and it was a huge equatorial storm, and I got into the tribe and just ran right into the first cabin I see, and I got into it. It was kind of dark, and there was the lady. She got surprised for my visit, and she looked at me, and when I looked at her, I saw the light surrounding her. Then I said, well, I felt to see, wow, now I understand. That love feeling was that I met a saint. For me, it was clear. Well, there's a long history that I think is not, we don't have enough time to it. I'm going to jump to Europe. Just after that, my daughter called me for help because her ex-husband had a stroke. She was living in Barcelona, and I flew to Barcelona. At that time, we lived in Sagrada Familia, just by the church. I couldn't see the church from my room. And one night I woke up with a deep love feeling, and it was a kind of a mantle, a blue mantle with golden stars coming around me, and I got totally in ecstasies with that energy. I never felt that before. I just felt there was a female, could be a Mary. Yeah, that's why all but it was very deep. And after that, I started on my back to my life as a shamanic specialist, we'll say. I'm not a shaman, but I was into it for a long time, studying with them, and in one ceremony we were very much into the Amazonian power plants, and there was a group that was gathering meetings with ayahuasca in a mountain in the Pyrenees. And there was an abuela, an elder, leading that group, and I saw a symbol in the wall that caused me the attention. I asked her, "Hey, abuela, what is that?" She said, "This is the symbol of Mary Magdalene." I said, "Mary Magdalene?" Wow. Then it was the first time that I heard about her, a part of what I learned on my school when I was young. At the same time, it opened up an interest in me to search more about it. Then on this research, I had a call. I was meditating in Montserrat once. I am a naturopath, specialized in flower essence remedies, like back flowers, but I learned in Amazonia with an elder, and I learned with the Amazonian flower essences. And that was springtime, and there was a beautiful bush of thyme just by a rosemary one. I say, wow, that's a nice place to lay down and meditate in between the two bushes, it suddenly happened as soon as I laid down to get a huge amount of information about how to build up a laboratory and search for the plants and do the remedies and do the sensors, and well, it was 4 hours, a complete orientation of what I have to do in Europe to develop a fluorescence system in the surroundings of the Pyrenees, based what I learned with the shamans in Amazonia. By that I started. I'm a history and archaeology, ethnology lover. I've been involved with archaeology since very young. I work with archaeology in Amazonia with a great master in modern archaeology. And for me, my way always was linked on researching old places, finding powerful tellurical and spiritual places. And then I start my way on the Pyrenees. I moved to the Pyrenees, and I start researching the sacred places, studying them, and also in those places I start to do the remedies, to do the essences. And one day, after doing the Camino de Santiago, I did the northern way and the primitive. It was funny because the first day I started the Camino, it was close to Jaca. I was in an old church. In that church, there's a retablo, I think it's in English, retablo.
To Santiago de Compostela?
Yeah, those carved, the back of in the altar, all those carved woods painted. How do you say that in English? Retablo, or in Castellano is retablo. I don't know in English. Well,
that sounds about right to me, Luiz.
Yeah, okay. I was watching that and observing that image. I start to get an information about Mary Magdalene, about her life. And I felt that the Santiago's way that I'm coming in wasn't a Santiago, the warrior, the killer of Muslims, as they normally call in Spain, that I was starting to get into a Marian way. By that, I start to realize that it's just a sacred feminine, because I never heard about it before. And I start to relate my way together with that. And the northern way, that is one of the oldest, Santiago's way, and the primitive, is full of Mary Magdalene chapels. I think that was the beginning of it. And when I came back down south to Catalonia, I started to research the old branches of the Camino de Santiago in Catalonia, because as not everybody knows that Santiago is not only one way. Santiago, there's lots, hundreds of ways. There are some more famous and others less famous. And I start to research the lost branches of the Santiago way in the mountains in the Pyrenees in Catalonia.
Were some of the ways, do you think, deliberately sort of lost in time because they didn't want people to know certain ways or only certain people to know? Or do you think it just happened naturally that?
I really never thought about it. I start to research the old ways, and I found an old book out of addiction that wrote about the most important pilgrimage ways in the medieval, and after Santiago, the most important one was a Marian way. Marian way that goes from Montserrat to Saint-Étienne in France. And this was, it's a Mary Magdalene way. Then I had the orientation to go deeper on it and invest my time investigating this, I would say, forgotten way. I don't know
Yes.
exactly what happened, but it was forgot. Yeah? Like most of the ways were not described as like French way, Northern way, Plata way. No? And I start to research it this way. Then I start to work around the area I'm living now in Ariège in southern France, in Occitanie. And one day I was doing a remedy on a stream. I love always to do remedies by the water. And on my when I do the essences, I always use a sacred water that flows from the cave where Mary Magdalene lived in Provence. And suddenly I felt her presence, and I was orientated to call my essences, to baptize my essences as Mary Magdalene essences. This has been something like 16 years ago, when the Mary Magdalene way was just beginning, you know. And by that, researching the Mary Magdalene way, I got to know also that before Santiago's Mary Magdalene way and others, there was a very, very old way that, on my point of view, go back to the Paleolithic, but it's proven that till Neolithic is proved, but I believe it's older. It was called the Starway, Caminho de las Estrellas. Yeah? I say Starway, not the path of the stars, because for us, a way is more than a path. When you say Santiago's way, it is a huge, deep, inner development to be a pilgrim on a way. That's why I call it Star Way, not the star path. And at the end, I got so much impressed with this information that I went deeper on it. I met Annie, and we've been searching together, and we exchanging information. And the Starway for me is the mother of all pilgrimage in all Europe. This is the oldest, because it happens before, from the northern face of the Pyrenees, all Europe was frozen. They were not hiking in the ice. But the face to the southwest, no, sorry, yeah, southwest, yeah, was more habitable, no? Was easier to live in those areas by the coast with less ice. And I found lots of marks, menhirs, dolmens, chapels that were showing the way. And now we understand that that was really a starway, and it's very important. Yeah, that's a brief of the history.
And this way, or these ways to the one way, is they're energetic pathways. And do you feel like these ways were always in existence, and then later were imbued with the spirit of Mary Magdalene, or even the spirit of those who go today to walk along the way? Do you feel like the very act of making the pilgrimage also adds to the energy of the area because so many people are showing devotion and veneration? Do you feel like that it has an effect on us and we can also have an effect on it?
Okay, I'm going to go back a bit about the way for you to understand better the relation with the secret family. The Starway is linked with the Milky Way. A part of the year, like the mountains that goes from Cap de Creus to Finisterre, let me see, it makes an arch, like an arm. And this arch reflects the Starway, the Milky Way, at some time in the year. I've been researching places that are above 2,500 meters above the sea level that had menhirs and dolmens marking the way. But if you think about menhirs and dolmens, you're talking about 5, 7, 9,000 years, some goes further back. All that region that I'm talking about was under ice. There was a glacier there. Then I asked myself, how come? When these people put those marks on the way? Because you have the French mark of the Mary Magdalene line, that was the Chartres line. There was the zero line before it turns to Greenwich. Now it's the second grade. It was already the French marks together with dolmens and menhirs. And that part is all full of megaliths, you know. And all this way was marked with megaliths and also star mountains. Star mountains was it changed names, like it could be Puig Estella in Catalan, Star Peak, Pico Estrella in Spanish, Star Peak, Cisteria. There are different names describing their Star Peak. They were like lighthouse for the pilgrims at that time, because the pilgrims could orientate themselves by the star peaks. And there's lots of star peaks all over the way till now are named as that. And the relation with Mary Magdalene is that they didn't come to the French coast just like no oars, tiny boat with no sails, taken by the currents in the wind. No. They came navigating, knowing exactly where they were landing in. They were respected in our French and Catalan coast. Because in the Kata Oriental tradition, it's a tradition that comes from Russia, Armenia, from that side of the world. They describe that Mary Magdalene lived on a castle. The name is São Salvador Verdera, that is in a mountain by the Cap de Creus. And she was initiating women. Just under the castle, there was a big Venus temple there. Okay, now it's a basilic, because the Vatican put a big St. Peter Basilic on top of the temple.
Did you say San Salvador?
San Salvador Verdera. Yeah. Is in the Cap de Creus Natural Park. Very close to Cadaqués as a reference. All that area is known as the beginning or the end of the way. Some people that come from Italy, southern France, starts the way there, all the way to Finisterre, the that coast. But you have to come back. Then, when you're going from Cap de Creus to Finisterre, you're going on a Venus way. You're searching for Venus. Venus, sacred family, Mary Magdalene, connected totally. On the way back, they left the that coast. They left all their belongings, all their what they want to leave, and they go searching for the light that came from the Orient. This is an important Gnostic phrase. And they were searching for Cap de Creus. Cap de Creus is the place where the first sun ray in peninsula hits land. That's why it's so important. And Mary Magdalene and her followers, there's a lot of legends and oral knowledge, and we are researching deeply about this history, and we are finding lots of chapels. Like in that area, you have something like 140 chapels of Mary Magdalene. We have a range of mountain named for Mary Magdalene. We know that lots of Mary churches were changed name due at that thing of that way that they understand Mary Magdalene as a prostitute. Lots of Mary Magdalene Church changed the name to just the Mary of Conception or other Mary.
Yes.
And we know that she had relatives in the ruins of Empurium. It's Empuria was
Really?
Empuria in the Roses Bay at the time of the Greek colonization, you should say.
Yes.
Empuria was the second bigger town after Athens.
Very was close. It?
Yeah, very close to Marseille. Also was a big Greek town, and they were full of Venus.
Was it Greek or was it Greek or was it Roman or both?
No, Roman after.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Greek and the first in reality was Phoenician. Then Greeks.
Mm.
Not talking about the people that lived in the area. There was Iberic, Celt-Iberic, Proto-Iberic, Proto-Celt-Iberic. But we had a very, very big influence of it. It's known that lots of documents till the 8th century in Catalonia were written in Greek. The common language in the Mediterranean was Greek. Not Latin at all.
Yeah.
There are proofs that there's some linguists that there's another history that not for now, but there's some linguistics with the new theory about the origin of our languages that's totally different from what we learned in the past. And by that you have lots of sites that are related with Mary Magdalene and her followers, like Martha, her sister, calmed down a dragon in Tarascon. This is known as a miracle she did.
Yeah.
Lazarus was the bishop in Marseille, her brother. We know that a part of this, the three Marys that arrived in Saint-Marie-de-la-Mer, lots of proto-Christians came at that time. Remembering that Septimania was a Hebrew settlement, a Hebrew kingdom in reality. Remembering that the Hebrews start to colonize this part of Europe, French, Catalonia, Spain, Portugal, since the first fall of the temple, 600 years before Christ, they were already doing a big diaspora for this region.
It was quite a large, a very large diaspora. Again, just to reflect, I don't think people necessarily understand just how far the Greeks went. Certainly, now the Phoenicians had. They were a bit difficult, the Phoenicians, because they employed their city-states. But we sometimes think that they're really a sort of unified group. They bit like the Greeks, really. They really operated in similar language, well, same language, but in city-states. So yes, in France you have Nice, named after Nike. You have Marseillon, Marseille, and Empuris is one of my absolute favourite sites. Around about 6% of it is uncovered. Most of the site, and I can well recommend. I'll be visiting there later this year, but I can well recommend to anyone who's visiting northern Spain, Mediterranean Spain, to try and get there. The Greeks not only colonized Puris, but also a place called, I butcher the pronunciation, but Rhosis, which was named after Rhodes. The Greek site at Empuris is, well, it's substantive, and its water collection is of note. But when the Romans got there, they said, "Here, hold my pint." And they built a vast complex. In fact, it's probably one of the largest complexes I've seen. Certainly larger than a number of sites in Italy, let alone elsewhere. But it is a vast site, and very interesting actually, because they were trading with Gades. That's Cadiz for me and you. This was a Phoenician city on the pillars of Hercules, effectively. Not quite Gibraltar, but hey, near enough. There's been lots of talk about some other places linking to things like Atlantis, but the breadth of trade is really interesting, because up where you are, Renee, in Coisa, we know that there's Etruscan ware that was brought by ships from Empuris. We know that there were trade with the Elyseic, the Elysians of the area, but not just them, but also another group called the Volk Tectasage, a Celtic group. And they were trading and bringing different styles. And it's with that trade, really, and that diffusion and that movement and the communication that you find Egyptian beliefs. I mean, we can talk about Venus, the morning star, but we can also reference things like Isis. We can reference Thoth, for example. We know about the Horus child, etc., etc. All of these, we don't just be thinking it was limited to Egypt. Temple of Isis in London, Paris, etc., etc. It was really, really diffuse. Lots of different ideas, and with that, things like the so-called Camino routes were once trodden again. There are certain routes I'm aware of, for example, that were used as escape routes, really, but ambush routes originally for the Knights Templar, that have eventually developed into other Camino routes linking to San Jacques or Santiago de Compostela. And it's just very interesting. But I'm of the opinion that actually you started your quest, if you want to call it that, out Santiago. You didn't end it there. And again, just to mention the Compostela, the field of stars, is relatively important. And final thing, we've spoke over the years on the show about this route, but there was a route of the alchemist, or route of the initiate, or goes by a lot of different names that linked particular sites to the heavenly bodies, but certainly in the medieval period. For example, Amiens Cathedral, the largest cathedral in Europe, was linked historically to Jupiter. We behave all day going through all of the different churches and what have you, but they're not linking to the to the cathedrals that you see today. they're really linking back to more ancient buildings, because as we know, the church didn't go and build the new buildings. They just built on top of old ones.
I have a question that might be out of left field, but is it possible, and this is for the both of you, because you're talking about these pathways being marked by menhirs and dolmens and things like that. Is it possible that San Salvador has any connection? When he said San Salvador, it kind of triggered that question for me.
If I can answer it, San Salvador, just for those who are perhaps unsure where we're referring, sits above. It's a hamlet. If you want to call it a hamlet, I think last time I checked, population was 4. But does have an intriguing chapel that's been slightly modified over time. It did sit on a pilgrimage route. That's easily evidenced. There's a place called Pius, where you can still see an ambulatory. This was a path that went from Carcassonne and took the southerly route in France, but I suppose northerly route in Spain as a Camino route. No.
Is that why there's a menhir at San Salvador?
I mean, it's certainly possible. But I just wanted to explain, when my mind went to when my mind didn't go to San Salvador, mine went to Salvatore, which is near Opul, Perios, in the Roussillon, which it does have caves. It does have a very interesting church, shall we say, and more intriguingly, I suppose, is the old Chateau d'Opul, which was, I think it had stationed there 200 Knights of Malta up until the French Revolution. And there are lots of local legends around that area that suggest that Salvatore, land of our Saviour, is the idea. That really is one of the places that Mary Magdalene, if she existed, or whatever the story, ended up. And just a few observations about the area: the water in the caves is sweet. Rich, you have to take my word, unless you want to brave spiders and God knows what else. But as someone who's diabetic, keep a very close eye on my blood sugars, and needing to take insulin for drinking water is a very odd experience, to say the least. Also to note, fertile valley, absolutely arid outside of the valley. And just to add, for those people who are intrigued by Abbé Saunière and all of the rest of it, Saunière's brother was the parish priest of Durban, which is nearby. That's where my mind went.
I can see why. Yeah.
Sorry, Luis, I sort of jumped in there.
Yeah, I just want to explain a bit San Salvador's. All the caminos that have a San Salvador are a very, very, very special place for the caminos. San Salvador in Oviedo, they said, if you go to Compostela, but you didn't pass in San Salvador, you haven't been to the Lord. And it's very, very important to go to Compostela, but you have to go to Oviedo before. Huh? Salvatierra é lugar fantástico. It's a very fantastic place. Huh? Saint Salvador, probably there's a link with this San Salvador's idea of an energy on a place. In San Salvador Verdera, they changed the name in Catalan originally was São Salvador Verdadeiro, but they changed the name for Verdera. São Salvador Verdera means São Salvador green. There's no greenish anything there, just rocks. Yeah, the original name was São Salvador Verdera, the true São Salvador. Yeah? For the Kata Oriental tradition, they say that in the astral plane, in top of the mountain of São Salvador Verdera, was installed a center of Christ energy emanation before the arrival of Mary Magdalene to prepare Europe for her word. This, to explain a bit about this, is kind of like you have Shambhala in the Himalayas. The energy of the São Salvador Verdera and the top of it is related to this tradition. There was a very, very strong Christ energy. And for clairvoyants that goes there till nowadays, will feel an energy of a huge lion above the mountain. Just remembering that Jesus was called the Judea lion, one of his names, the Lion of Judea or Judea.
And I think
the lion is related with the Christ energy a lot.
And again, you see, what we get into with things like this is lots of people's opinions and beliefs and all of this. So my usual comment is nothing's made in any offense, but there is a school of thought out there that suggests that actually the story of Jesus is actually a repeat story, effectively taken from Mithraism, which in itself was taken from earlier teachings. There are certainly links to the stories of Moses, for example, and then we can go further and further back. But it is curious when you hear the link with Jesus and the lion, because of course immediately you jump to Leo, and again you immediately jump to, okay, well, we've got Sphinx and we've got all of this, and again it strikes me as an historian that it's a continuing tradition rather than a new one, and I wonder whether the traditions have continued. For example, I've just mentioned Amiens, we've mentioned Chartres, Notre Dame de Marseille, for example, Notre Dame de Paris. You can even look at the old Roslin, and not necessarily the current iteration, but generally speaking, there's been a opinion out there that if you see a labyrinth within the cathedral, effectively you walk it in order to charge up or access whatever that particular venue has to offer. And again, this is looking for the origins of one branch of my family, and ended up in Saint-Guillaume-le-Dessert, a place where one of my ancestors, and probably tens of thousands of ancestors and all of this, but yes, William of Gillon basically tried to establish a hermitage for himself, and of course he had such popularity, a lot of people followed him and set up shop, and founded a town. But you can just imagine, I've had a busy life. Can you all just go away and leave me alone? Sounds Monty Python-esque, doesn't it? And yes, being there were some pilgrims in the church there, in quiet reflection. And I ended up speaking to them, and they were just, they were about a quarter of the way. These people had began their journey in Italy, and they were heading to Santiago, being of a Catholic order, I couldn't tell you which one. I just knew they were part of a Catholic order. And it was very curious to hear the language that they felt that by walking a route that was special for them and their order. I didn't make further inquiries. That's, everyone has their own beliefs. Enjoy yours. But they had said that they were charging. That was the idea. Within every point, essentially, they felt, spiritually charged and all of that. And that there is, of course, growing up near stone circles, I suppose. There are, again, local stories of people feeling charged by stone circles and menhirs and all of this. So you see, for me, it feels very much like it's a very ancient and continuing tradition. Renee, you're on mute. Sorry, just to explain to listeners. So where Renee is, the temperature is above 30, and where I am, it's at 30. So we've got fans and cooling on, and in order to minimise, the audio disruption, etc., we're muting ourselves. So yes. I'm sure you can forgive us if you're listening to this in winter time. I apologize for the idea of having a fan on, but yeah.
Right, but also I'm on the main road here, so every now and then a big truck comes barreling down, so I'm trying to protect people's ears from that. But what I was asking is, Luiz, do you find that to be true at some of these locations where you feel energized, or people that you're with feel like they've been recharged at these locations?
I think it's go deeper than that, because in reality, all the sacred paths, and not only caminos as Santiago, if you go to Roses, to the circle route, megalith route, there's lots of dolmens and menhirs. You can feel in each dolmen a different energy going on with you. We made the research that each dolmen, one dolmen works your thorax, the other dolmen your sexual area, other dolmen the head. The same thing happened with the menhirs. And on my understanding, the original starway that was divided in 64 etaps. Each etap work on a different mood. It's not only charging or cleansing, is much more complex. It's a whole initiation process. One of the things about the starway was described kind of 100 years before Christ by a Greek geographer as a druidic initiation path. And as far as I got to understand, and I heard, and I read, that path, the starways, was important for the Celtiberic traditions, and probably Celts and Gauls, because they were very close together. They had to do this way to be initiated. In all the process of initiation, initiatic processes, you're gonna pass by different moods. It's not just charging or not, Obviously, there was places that you got charged, and some you're gonna get smashed. No? This is the way of initiation. This is the initiation path. That is, it is true what you said. It is, but it's much more complex. As each manner is a manner and have her own energy, and each dolmen also. They connect with some connects with different constellations, and if you go there, you feel different energies.
That reminds me of some of the springs in this area.
The same thing.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
some springs you go to if you have a head problem, or
Yeah.
another one for diabetes, or another one
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah, yeah.
kidney or other
The same
problems.
as the thermal baths we have around in the
Yes.
thermal areas. You have different thermals for
Yep.
different problems.
Yep. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people come here and say that they've been cured of. There was one lady, the first tour group I ever brought over here, I think it was 2011. And she had been here before, and she was coming back to sort of pay homage to the area because she claimed that swimming in the thermal baths in Rennies cured her breast cancer. And I'm still in touch with her to this day, and she's stayed healthy, no return of anything, and she still believes that this happened here. And I've heard other people say similar things.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So, Luis, I know that you do a lot of guiding people around different sacred areas, not just here. But what is it that you have coming up next?
Well, I'm here guiding the people as far as they want, but I will go to USA soon.
Yes.
Yeah. And one thing that I found I'm married with an American girl, and she lives there, and now it's my turn to go. And interesting thing about the Camino is all the starways goes on the 42 grade parallel.
Mm.
And when I first came to USA, she took me to a pilgrimage to the Black Hills, to the Dakota land. And I got very much amazed because the same energy that I felt here, I felt there. And that makes me connect with, well, we have Mary Magdalene in Europe, but they have the white buffalo woman in the prairies. But the same energy. After going to the Black Hills, to the sacred parts of the Black Hills, I came back, opened up a map, and traced a line from Cap de Creus, Finisterre, crossing the ponds. And you know what I found? That most of the sacred Lakota sites are almost in the same line. At that time, I was following an elder, Abuela Margarita. It was amazing person. And I phoned her, say, Abuela, look what I found. I went to Black Hills. The Abuela was the first woman to smoke the white buffalo calf pipe in our history, because it was forbidden for women to smoke it. She had a vision, she had a call, she went there, talk with the keeper of the pipe, and he agreed, okay, you're gonna be the first. She knew very well that area. He said, Luis, didn't you know that it's all connected? And if you follow that line, you found that, how come the sacred feminine is there in the same line that the sacred feminine here?
That's pretty
It's
amazing.
known that the Pyrenees is the cunha, is the cradle of the sacred feminine, the main cradle of the sacred feminine for the world. And this line, this sacred feminine, is in between the change of eras from Pisces to Aquarius, from Himalayas to the Central South America. This line is doing the change. That's why Mary Magdalene exploded in the last 20 years. Everybody's coming to this region. If you see the history of this region, always have been a pilgrimage place, area. This is, if you go back millions, thousands of years, is the same thing. The energy is in here. That's
look
why
at
people are
those.
so attracted to this place.
What is this place in the painting?
San Salvador Verderá.
That's it? Oh my gosh.
That's San Salvador Verderá.
Oh wow. Perched up on the hill. Very beautiful. Just
Well,
a couple of
It's very magical,
pictures.
everything.
Yes, I guess there really is magic.
Yeah.
Let's hope so anyway. And I think it is time for us to wrap up. It looks like we've gone just a little bit beyond our time, which is fine, because I love hearing your stories and about your work. It's super interesting. And I'll be glad when you come back and visit us again. And
You'll be soon.
Yes, I think you're going to bring your wife to see us too.
Yeah.
That'll be great. Yes, you'll have to come and stay with us.
Yeah.
So anyway, Luiz, thank you so much. And
You are
again,
welcome. Thank you.
To our listener out there.
Thank you both. Yeah, I think we
if
had
you
lots of
have
talk.
any-
It's
Yes.
just the beginning of.
Oh yes. I can see that you
Chats.
two have
Yeah.
a lot of talking to do.
Yeah. We for sure.
You bet.
just to remind everyone to like, share, subscribe. Feel free to comment. Keep your comments respectful. And do something.
Yep, we've just relaunched, so we're just growing by leaps and bounds here. And we
Well,
want to go
do
by
one
leaps
good
and
deed
bounds.
for the day if you want.
Okay.
So thank you, everybody, and thank you especially, Luiz.
Thank you very much. It'll be
Much
wonderful to be
appreciated.
with you.
Take care, everyone.